Robert W. Pratt, presiding.
Please be seated.
Your Honor, the case before the court this afternoon is 414 CV 236. Powell versus Noble et al. Counsel, please enter your appearance to the record.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Nate Kellum. I represent the plaintiff. To my left is Bob Anderson, co-counsel, who also represents.
Okay, welcome.
Good morning. Grant Dugdale, Iowa Assistant Attorney General, Jeff Peter Zolik, and David Dorff, with our client, Gary Slater.
All right, thank you, counsel. Before we begin, I have to tell you that the Southern District of Iowa is one of 14 districts in the United States that is participating in a pilot program of the Judicial Conference of the United States. I think you both know this, but for the record, I'm stating it. The Judicial Conference of the United States is the policy-making body that determines what policies the United States courts are to follow. Our district is engaged in this pilot project, digitally recording these proceedings and others that happen in a civil case with the consent of the parties. As you know, the proceeding is being recorded. In my discretion, I'm allowed the opportunity to post the video on the uscourts.gov site or the Southern District of Iowa site. And absent some objections from one of you, I intend to post it in keeping with the idea that the public has a right to participate in our proceedings by, or observing our proceedings by virtue of being able to view these on the internet. So it's required that I tell you that. Mr. Kellum, welcome to Iowa. As you know, under our rules, you have the burden of proof. So if you want to go ahead with your presentation, and if you think it would help me, I've read your opening brief and your reply brief, as well as the defendant's brief. I've read the affidavits as well, so if you think an opening statement is likely to help me, you're free to do that. If you want to put on evidence, you may proceed that way.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, not noting really any disputed facts, we're relying on the affidavits and the exhibits.
Well, the affidavits to me have a lot of disputed facts.
Well, I guess I'll see what the state says, but we really didn't note anything that would be pertinent as far as the issues at hand.
Okay, so you want me to base my findings on the affidavits?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, it's very difficult to cross-examine those.
Well, certainly if there's a disputed fact, I guess we would reserve the opportunity to bring
Right.
Mr. Powell up, but we didn't, like I said, and I'll be glad to go through that as far as what we believe the relevant facts to be, and please, I would love to hear from the court. If there are some disputed facts that the court would like for me to address, I'll be glad to do so.
All right.
Would the court like to hear a presentation at this time, or
Well, why don't I
argument?
ask Mr. Dugdale, perhaps he thinks there are no disputed facts either, and you can both agree on the facts, so therefore I can rely on what you both believe the undisputed facts to be. Mr. Dugdale?
Your Honor, I believe there are issues of disputed fact, and we would like to present some brief testimony outlining my client's position to make sure that the record is full and complete.
Okay. All right. And why don't we do this? If you want to make your, Mr. Kellum wants to rest on the affidavits factually, that's fine. It's his case. And then I'll let you make a factual presentation, and then I'll let Mr. Kellum make his legal argument based upon what he thinks the facts are. And we'll go from there, and I'll let you make your legal argument. Does that work for you, Mr. Dugdale?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, fine. Thank you very much. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just before we call our first witness, we are going to be using an enlargement. And I just wanted to make sure that the court, that when we set it up, that you won't have any, we want to make sure we set it up in the appropriate place. Is there a place that you find is better for enlargements than others?
That's fine, just so counsel for the plaintiff can have equal access to it.
All right. With your Honor's permission, can we move it a little bit closer to the witness stand?
That's fine, whatever works for you and Mr. Kellum.
All right. Right. You want us to move a little closer to it? Well, either people that can stand. We'll have to move it in there after they get in. Let's consent. All right. Start with it. At this time, Your Honor, the defendants call Rhonda Hummel.
Right, you want to come forward?
Raise your right hand, ma'am. You do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause now before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do.
Mr. Dugdale, you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Do you prefer counsel to do our examination from the table or from the podium?
The podium, if
Okay.
you like.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please state your name for the record.
Rhonda Hummel?
And do you work for the Iowa State Fair?
Yes.
And in what capacity do you work for the Iowa State Fair?
I work for the patrol department.
And are you a Iowa State Fair patrol officer?
Yes.
And how long have you been-
Pardon me, Mr. Dugdale. Ms. Hummel, just pull the microphone a little closer to you. The high ceilings sometimes make it appear that it's easy. Thank you very much. Excuse me, Mr. Dugdale, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. How long have you been a Iowa State Fair patrol officer?
For 20 years.
Now, is that a full-time or part-time job?
Part-time.
Principally during the fair?
Actually year-round.
Good. And what are your duties, real briefly, as a State Fair patrol officer?
We work with the public, mostly helping them find various places during the fair, information, write reports, assist with the public.
Now, are you a certified law enforcement officer in the state of Iowa?
No.
Do you carry any weapons?
No.
Do you have any arrest powers?
No.
Now, I would like to call your attention to the evening of Thursday, August 15, 2013. Do you recall being dispatched to Gate 15 or the main gate sometime in the evening of August 15?
I was dispatched to Gate 11, which is the main gate.
Gate 11. Thank you for correcting me. Now, Your Honor, I'd like to, at this time, the state has, with consent of counsel, we've agreed to the admissibility of Exhibit 1, which is a copy of the enlargement that we have.
All right.
And with the court's permission, I'd like to use the...
All right. You may do so for the purposes of our spectators. You want to put it on the Elmo, they may be able to see it when you're doing that as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see here if I can get this right. What do I have to get here?
Just 1 minute.
Okay.
We'll be with you.
Oh,
Okay.
I think it's actually even set the way.
All right, Mr. Kellum, you can see okay with that. I knew you couldn't see this, so I want to make sure you could see.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Close enough to you here so you can see it with probably not having too much difficulty. Do that. Now, I want to kind of, before we get into the events of the 15th, I would like to talk with you. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may. You may.
I'd like to talk to you and set the stage a little bit about the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Exhibit 1 is a copy of a photograph of the portion of an Iowa State Fair that we're talking about here today, correct?
Yes.
Now, is this a copy, does this photograph depict a busy day at the Iowa State Fair?
No.
But it depicts the layout of the State Fair?
Yes.
Okay. Just so that we're oriented here and that we can do this, on the bottom of Exhibit 1 is East 30th Street, correct?
Yes, it is.
Now, which direction does East 30th go?
It runs north and south.
And then at the left-hand corner of side of Exhibit 1, there's East University, correct?
Yes.
And which direction does East University run?
East and west.
Now, we'd indicated that you were going to Gate 11, which is the main gate, correct?
Yes.
Can you point out for the court where the main gate is on Exhibit 1?
The main gate is located at East 30th and Grand.
Okay. Now, just so we do, when you look at Exhibit 1, are there any fences along the fairgrounds?
Yes, there is.
Would that be on the east side of East 30th Street?
Yes, it is.
Can you, and when you look at the area that forms Gate 11, does the fence make kind of a funnel shape going into that area?
Overruled, I think it's preliminary.
Yes, it does.
All right. Now, is the main gate or Gate 11 a busy gate for the State Fair?
Yes, it is.
What goes on at Gate 11, the main gate? Is it pedestrian traffic go through there?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Where does the pedestrian traffic come from?
It comes from the East 30th. It comes from Grand Avenue, east of Grand Avenue, east from Grand Avenue, comes from the houses that are parked, or the people park on Grand Avenue, which is west of Grand Avenue, west of East 30th.
So now you have pedestrian traffic come in. Now, just so that there's clear, is there a sidewalk at all on the fairgrounds on the west side or the east side of East 30th Street?
Not on the east side of East 30th.
Okay. Now, in addition to pedestrian traffic going into Gate 11 or the main gate, is there any vehicular traffic in that area?
No vehicles are allowed on that gate.
All right. As far as, but during the fair, are people driving on East 30th Street?
Yes.
What is the traffic? Is it heavy, light?
On a typical fair day, it can be heavy.
Let's talk about the evening of, now in addition to, are there any drop-offs or pickups at that location at the main gate?
Yes, we barricade the gate off, and there are taxis. That is a taxi stand.
Where is the taxi stand located? Can you point to it on the Exhibit 1?
Yes. The taxis are here, located. They're stationed here, and also limousines can drop people off and pick people up at that gate.
Okay. And so it looks like there's approximately how far back is now there's a gate that you're referring to. Is that this item line right here?
Yes, it's a black wrought iron gate that's padlocked.
Okay. And how far back from the street is that gate?
I would say it's probably half a city block back.
Okay. Now, is there any other traffic control that exists at East 30th and the Grand area in front of Main Gate 11?
Yes, we have Des Moines police officers that are at that intersection.
Okay. Now, do they have any staging areas at the main gate?
Yes, they do.
And where would the staging areas be?
In the grassy area, which is north of that intersection on the fairgrounds side.
Now,
Mr. Dugdale, I don't know if you know this, but she can actually point on that screen.
oh,
Yes.
all right.
Mr. Kellum could be seated and those in the audience could see, but I don't want to tell you how to try your lawsuit.
Well, Judge, thank you.
right.
I've never had the
Okay.
technology available
Okay.
in the courtroom,
Okay.
so that's very helpful, and I'll do
All right.
that.
All right.
Now, I'd like to call your attention back then to the evening of August 15, when you were dispatched out there. What was happening? Were there any concerts or anything going on that evening?
There was a very large concert that night.
And who was playing?
I believe it was Toby Keith.
And were there a lot of people there?
Yes.
All right. And what time do concerts start at the Iowa State Fair?
8 o'clock in the evenings.
And you were dispatched to that location about approximately what time? Do you recall?
I believe it was around 8 o'clock.
Now, was there any other events going on or promotions going on for the Thursday evenings at the State Fair?
Yes, after 5 o'clock, generally they have a 2-for-1 ticket admission.
All right. When you were dispatched to that location in the main gate, gate 11, did you go alone?
No.
Who went with you?
There was another officer, Officer Smith and Officer McDonald.
And both of those individuals are State Fair Patrol officers like yourself?
Yes.
When you arrived at the main gate, what did you observe?
I observed a gentleman that was standing on the sidewalk in front of probably about 10, 15 feet from the ticket booth.
All right, and if you could, using the screen in front of you, could you point approximately where that individual was standing?
Okay, now, Mr. Dugdale, my law clerk tells me since we're being recorded, I don't know if we can switch it to reflect the Elmo. So
Okay.
what I told you originally perhaps isn't true. I say perhaps because we've never tried that before.
All right. Can you point on then Exhibit 1, the enlargement, where you observed that individual standing?
Approximately here.
And how far away would that have been from the ticket booth?
Not real good with judging distances, but I would say it was probably, I would say it's probably about 15 to 20 feet from the curb, from East 30th.
At that time, was that individual that you observed standing on the fairgrounds?
Yes.
All right. Where does your understanding that the fairgrounds begins as it relates to East 30th Street?
At the curb?
So it'd be at the east curb of East 30th Street?
Yes.
What happened as you approached that individual standing approximately 50 feet from the booth?
Officer Smith approached the individual, and Officer McDonald and I stayed away as he approached the individual.
All right. How far away did Officer Smith get from that individual, who's Mr. Powell?
Within an arm's length.
4 feet?
Approximately 4 feet, I believe.
Mr. Kellum, you got to be a little louder. I see it on my screen that you objected.
The objection to form out, unless the person's like 7'5", I don't know the arm's length.
Okay, overruled.
And how far back were you and the other officer standing?
We were about 6 foot away from the individual.
Now, when you walked up there, did you see whether that individual was impeding the flow of traffic into or out of the fairgrounds?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
All right. When you approached that individual, did you see that they were causing any obstructions to the flow of traffic into the State Fair?
Yes, he was standing on the sidewalk.
And what did that cause to happen?
It he was blocking the sidewalk, causing individuals to go around him into the street.
Okay. And did you have any concerns about individuals being in the street?
Yes, we did.
What were your concerns?
That if the taxis or limousines or vehicles coming in to pick up other individuals, that they might not see people going into the street.
Now, are you aware of any instances of any personal injuries at the around the main gate during the State Fair?
Yes.
What is an example?
A couple of years ago, a Des Moines officer was struck and critically injured at that intersection.
One of the officers was providing traffic control?
Yes, he was.
Now,
Mr. Dugdale, does the sidewalk, as you approach Gate 11, does it run east and west?
the sidewalk, as you approach Gate 11, which would be the sidewalk here, is that the one you're talking about, Judge?
Yes.
Yes, it runs east and west. Does it run east and west?
Yes, it does.
And is there a sidewalk that leads up to what I think of as the ticket booth?
I believe that there's the sidewalk that here begins on the east side of East 30th Street, leads into the ticket booth, which he testifies right there.
All right, thank you. Okay, I apologize, I interrupted you. Your last question was, one of the officers was providing traffic control, and she responded, yes, he was, and then I interrupted you.
Okay. Now, you observed that Mr. Powell was impeding the flow of traffic, causing people to go around him. What happened next?
With Mr. Powell?
Yes.
Officer Smith was talking with him, and after that,
What did Mr. Powell do after Officer Smith talked with him?
he went across the street to a public sidewalk.
Okay, just so that we're clear then, would it be a public sidewalk that would be on the west side of East 30th Street, right around the intersection of Grand?
Yes.
Now, was Mr. Powell the first incident that you're aware of where a individual was asked to leave that area of the main gate?
On that particular day?
No,
Or-
generally before that.
No, we've had other incidents where we've asked people to go across the street.
And why did you ask them to go across the street?
Public safety,
What do you mean by public safety?
where an individual has blocked the sidewalk so others have to go around them into the street.
Did Officer Smith ask Mr. Powell to leave Fairgrounds property and go across the street?
I don't know that for sure.
Can you recall for the court whether Mr. Powell was holding a sign?
I believe he was.
Do you recall what that sign said?
No, I do not.
Do you recall how large it was?
Poster size?
Was he holding it, or was he holding the sign?
He was. It was on a pole of some kind.
Okay. Do you recall if Mr. Powell was wearing a T-shirt with any type, or shirt with any type of expression on it?
I don't know.
Do you recall what Mr. Powell was saying?
No, I don't.
Are you aware of whether Mr. Powell was asked to move across the public sidewalk was based on the content of his poster?
I don't recall.
And do you know whether it was based on the content of his speech?
I don't recall.
On the content of any message that he may have been saying?
I don't recall.
With that, Judge, I have no further questions.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Dugdale, I wanted one question. When she said, I marked a part of it here. Okay, you said, here's the question, and now, so you observed that Mr. Powell was impeding the flow of traffic, causing people to go around him. What happened next? Is the flow of traffic that's being impeded that on Grand Avenue or on East 30th?
It would be the flow of traffic getting into into the main gate, which would be the area on the fairgrounds. It would be the main, approximately where he was at, right on the east side of East 30th Street.
Okay.
Towards the main admission gates, which are located here.
So that's considered part of, quote, fair property?
That is the fairgrounds.
Okay.
The fairgrounds runs from the east side of East 30th Street.
Right.
And it's at least on the north end, it's bordered by East University, right. Everything to the south of it.
All right, thank you. Mr. Kellum, would you like to cross-examine?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon. It's Ms. Hummel, right?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hummel, let me just ask you a few questions. I think you mentioned a fence, and you were kind enough to point it out. Let me confirm. Mr. Powell is standing outside of the fence. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you also mentioned a sidewalk. Is that right?
Yes.
And that sidewalk runs from the curb of East 30th toward the ticket booth. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you said you were dispatched, I believe, along with Officer Smith, and was it McDonald?
Yes.
Why were you dispatched?
We were told there was someone outside of gate 11 that was impeding the flow of pedestrians coming inside of the gate.
And I believe you testified to impeding. Now, by that, you mean that people had to walk around Mr. Powell. Is that correct?
Yes.
He didn't block anyone from getting into the fair. Is that correct?
He was blocking the sidewalk so that people had to walk around him to get to the ticket booth.
But that's what I'm asking. So they were walking around, so they were getting to the fair, correct?
Yes.
And I believe you said that you actually were not part of the conversation when Officer Smith approached Mr. Powell. Is that right?
Yes.
So, to your knowledge, Mr. Officer Smith never mentioned anything about stepping aside to let people walk by. Isn't that correct?
That I don't know.
Okay. Now, Mr. Smith has submitted an affidavit in this case, and he said that he just advised the plaintiff they need to leave the fair sidewalk. Would that be correct?
I don't know if that's what he said.
Or would you have any reason to dispute that?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay. And I believe, and you were saying this too, but Officer Smith said that the understanding of the Iowa State Fair is that the property extends all the way to the curb. Is that correct?
Yes.
So Mr. Powell would not have an opportunity to be on any portion of Mr. Powell would not have any opportunity to be on any portion, whether it's sidewalk or not. Is that right? His only option was to go across the street.
I believe so.
Does the Iowa State Fair recognize that the 10 feet from the curb would be a right-of-way? for the city of Des Moines?
I don't know.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hummel. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Any redirect, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. Now, I'd like to talk with you about the flow of traffic if we could. Now, the sidewalk that we're talking about, which is this sidewalk that runs at the intersection on Grand, just to the east of East 30th, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, where does the sidewalk lead?
Into the fairgrounds.
Now, as far as the fairgrounds itself, set back from East 30th Street, there is a fence, correct?
Yes.
And that fence goes around the entire fairgrounds?
Yes.
Now, opposing counsel asked you some questions about impeding the traffic flow and to do this. I'd like to talk with you about how the traffic flows at that main gate. Is traffic flow constant? People coming into or out of the fair?
Yes, it is.
Is it the same amount all the time, or does that vary?
It varies.
Now, when you'd indicated that you were seeing that Mr. Powell was impeding the flow of traffic and you had concerns, what were your concerns specifically?
That if someone stepped in the street, they might get hit.
Was it fair to say that you were concerned about traffic, that people backing up and people having to stand in the street?
Yes.
Now, I want to also talk to you about alternatives of locations where Mr. Powell could have gone. I believe you testified that he was directed to the public sidewalk on the west side of East 30th Street, correct?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about different places where Mr. Powell could have stood. Now, this is the main gate. If Mr. Powell stood halfway, number of blocks or so down to the north of the main gate, would you have as many concerns about impeding traffic there?
No.
Why not?
There's no pedestrian traffic
Or little pedestrian traffic?
or little pedestrian traffic.
Okay. If Mr. Powell went to the south of Gate 11, would there be similar places for Mr. Powell to stand in that area?
Sure, on the grassy area.
Right. And would your only concern be for whether Mr. Powell would potentially, if he was actually blocking traffic, pedestrian traffic in that area?
Sure.
Okay. But is there a lot of pedestrian traffic based on your experience in that area?
Not usually.
I have no further questions.
All right. Mr. Kellum, any recross? All right. You may step down. Thank you.
Your Honor, for the record, Jeff Peter Zollik with the Attorney General's Office.
Right.
I'll be calling Terry Orr as a witness.
All right. You want to come forward and be sworn, please?
You do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give and the cause now before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated. Mr. Pastor, go ahead.
Thank you. Would you tell us your full name for the record, please?
Terry Lee Orr.
Are you employed by the State Fair?
Yes, I am. How are you employed by the State Fair?
as a patrol officer.
Can you give us a general idea of what you do as a patrol officer for the State Fair?
Provide security for all the buildings and the grounds for the State Fair.
And as far as, how long have you been doing that?
I've been doing that for 16 years.
As far as your duties as a State Fair patrol officer, are you assigned to certain areas during the course of the fair?
Yes, we are.
And if we go back to the fair of 2013, were you assigned to a particular area within the fair?
Yes, I was.
What area was that?
I'm in Section 3, which is the upper portion just before you go into the campground area. It covers the upper portion of the, like I said, the campgrounds where the museum, Poultry Chicken, and down to where the Youth Inn is, and over by Gate 15 and by the Midway.
For the record, and where is Gate 15 located? And you feel free to refer to Exhibit 1 if you would like.
Gate 15 is right up here, sir.
Off of University?
No, it's not off of University. It's inside the fairgrounds.
Okay. Is that accessed off of University then?
Yes,
There's a roadway leading from University then to Gate 15?
to Gate 15, yes.
That roadway that leads from University to Gate 15, is that on the fairgrounds?
Yes,
And people that are entering that area off of University, is there vehicular traffic that enters that area?
yes, sir.
Is there parking areas that are accessed by entering off of
Yes.
University? And can you tell us by looking at Exhibit 1 what areas people would be parking in at the fair?
Yes, very, very much so.
Well, can you point to the areas that the cars would normally
Yes.
park? I don't see any cars parked there right now.
Yes, sir. All this area right in through here, all in through here, and also up above it into that area up there, people park. We divert people from that gate. If this is overloaded, we divert them up into that area to park.
And you see in the grassy area to the side of the racetrack on Exhibit 1, several, looks like dirt paths and some roadways that go down through there.
Yes, sir. That's for the vehicles to travel where they park.
And during the course of the fair, is that area full of cars?
Yes, sir.
Any idea how many cars park in that area?
Close to 4,000. Easy.
As a state fair patrol officer, are you a law enforcement officer?
No,
Do you have any powers of arrest?
no.
If we go to August 16th of 2013, did you have an opportunity to encounter Mr. Powell on that day?
Yes, I did, sir.
Do you know about what time that would have been?
I know it was dusk. That's all I know. I didn't check to see exactly what time it was.
How did it come about that you encountered Mr. Powell?
I was called by the dispatch that there was an individual up at Gate 15 that was impeding people from going in and standing partially in the street.
That Mr. Powell was standing partially in the street?
Yes, he was, sir.
Did you then proceed to the area that you were dispatched to?
Yes, sir.
When you got to the area that you were dispatched to, first of all, why don't you tell us where that area was, where you arrived, where Mr. Powell was? Can you point to Exhibit 1 on that?
Sir. Right here. There's the bathrooms right here, and he was standing right here on the corner. There's two manhole covers that sit there, and Mr. Powell was on the first manhole cover, which is partly on the corner as you go around that corner right there and on the concrete.
As you arrived and observed what you just described with Mr. Powell standing on the roadway, did that cause you any concern, first of all, with respect to Mr. Powell?
Yes.
And
I was
tell us
afraid he was going to get hit.
What about with respect to other people, either in vehicles or pedestrians that were coming into the area?
Well, he was stopping people, trying to keep them from going in.
As far as, and just maybe for a little bit more background, that entrance off of University going into the fair, how many lanes of traffic are going into the fairgrounds off of University?
There's 2 lanes coming into the fairgrounds, and there's 2 lanes leaving.
And on both sides of that roadway, is there also pedestrian traffic?
Yes.
Is that a busy gate to the State Fair,
Extremely.
both with pedestrian and vehicle traffic?
Yes, sir.
Is that the main vehicle entrance to the fair for parking purposes?
Yes, it is.
As you arrived and approached or saw Mr. Powell as you described, what did you do then?
I pulled up to the bathroom, parked there on the side on the grassway, and I walked up to him and I asked him if he would come over here so I could talk to him, because he was standing in a trap on the edge of the roadway there, and I didn't want him to get hit. There was a lot of cars going through there, and there was people trying to get in and out of the bathroom and going around him, trying to get into the gate 15. So I asked him to come up into this little cubby hole that was there on the entranceway to the bathroom, and I asked him to come, would he would come over here so I could talk to him.
Did he come towards you then?
Yes, he did.
As he approached you or came to approach you, did he say anything to you?
Yes, he did. He got right up in my face and he said, "Don't push me."
What did you do after he said that?
I just told him that he needed to move on off the campgrounds, because being inside the area where he was at, he was on the campgrounds. Campgrounds start at gate 2, is which I told him, and he needs to go outside gate 2 and go across the street to the convenience store over there, and he could do whatever he needs to do over there.
You're talking across University?
Yes, sir.
To the area where there's a public sidewalk there?
Yes.
Now, on the side of University that borders the fairgrounds, are there any sidewalks on that side of the street?
No.
And as far as what's your understanding, as far as, I think we may have already discussed this, the roadway from University to the area that you encountered Mr. Powell was on the fairgrounds?
Yes.
Did Mr. Powell go across the street when you told him he was free to do so?
He didn't get a chance to. The highway patrolman pulled up then, and I was told they had it and they would take care of it from them.
And you had a few minute encounter with Mr. Powell. Would that be fair?
Yeah, a few minutes.
And as far as, it was when you approached Mr. Powell and saw Mr. Powell standing where you described and testified to, did he have anything in his hands?
We had a sign.
Can you give us an idea how big of a sign?
No, it was poster type sign and everything with a aluminum pole that he had attached to it that he could hold and stand in front of people to talk.
Any concern about the metal pole that was attached to the sign?
Not at the time, no.
He didn't threaten you with it or anything
No.
like that? As far as, when you were speaking with Mr. Powell, did you say anything to Mr. Powell about what was on his sign?
No.
Did you say anything, do you even know what was on his sign?
No.
Did you say anything to Mr. Powell about what might have been on his T-shirt?
No.
Do you have any idea what, if anything, would have been on his T-shirt?
No.
Did you say anything to Mr. Powell about what he might have been saying to passersby?
No.
You know what he was saying to passersby?
Not really.
Did asking Mr. Powell to go across the street have anything to do with the content of the message he was issuing at that location?
No.
What was the reason for having him move?
He was impeding traffic. He was actually in the way of traffic, standing where he was at.
Now, when we look at Exhibit 1, as it's depicted in that exhibit, there aren't cars parked there, there aren't people there. Would that be different when the fair's going on?
Say that again?
Would there be people and cars on the fairgrounds in that area where Mr. Powell was during the
Yes,
fair?
sir, considerably.
And I think the question I have is, was there a situation where he could have just moved over by the bathrooms or into any of that grassy area?
No, sir, there was no place that he could go to get out of the way of people or vehicles at any time.
But he would have been okay across University.
Yes, sir.
And as far as, I think maybe even the first witness asked this question, if he would have been outside the gate and along the grassy area along University where there wasn't a sidewalk, would you have had any big problem with that?
No.
I think that's all I have.
All right, Mr. Cullen.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Hello, Mr. Orr. Mr. Orr, I believe you're explaining the the parking, and I believe you're saying that people park right before those public restrooms. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So they would, if you're pulling in, then you turn right before the public restrooms, and that's where people park. Is that
There are
correct?
constant cars around that building 24, all the time.
I'm sorry, during the fair?
During the fair, yes.
Okay. And now, did you tell Mr. Powell that he was impeding traffic?
No, sir.
Okay. And I believe the option that you told Mr. Powell, if I understand your testimony, was to go to the convenience store across University. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Orr.
Any redirect, counsel?
Just a couple of quick questions. The cross-examination indicated you did not tell Mr. Powell specifically that he was impeding traffic. Is that right?
No.
But you did you tell him to come to you?
Yes, I told him to come to me because he was standing in the traffic way and I didn't want him to get hit.
I guess that'll take care of the why question I was going to ask. Thank you.
Yes.
That's all I have.
Mr. Kellum, any further questions?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Mr. Orr, you may step down. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. For the record, my name is Dave Dorff, and I would like to call Gary Slater.
All right. Mr. Slater, you want to raise your right hand to be sworn?
You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause now before this court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please be seated.
Mr. Slater, are you one of the named defendants in this action?
Yes, sir, I am.
What do you do for a living?
I work for the Iowa State Fair as the manager and CEO.
And how long have you held that position?
14 years.
And what are your responsibilities in that position?
My responsibilities are to oversee all operations of the fairgrounds and to produce a fair for the fair each year, overseeing all personnel and programming. And then in the off-season, work with our lessees to produce the off-season events that happen.
Have you ever met the plaintiff in this case, Mr. Powell, before?
No.
Were you either directly or indirectly involved in any way with Mr. Powell's incidences on either August 15th or August 16th of 2013?
No.
When did you first become aware of the alleged incidents involving Mr. Powell on those dates?
Approximately a month ago when I was served with this lawsuit.
Thank you. I'd like to focus now first on the alleged incident on August 15th at East 30th and Grand Avenue. First of all, do you happen to know why Mr. Smith is not here today?
Officer Smith, I believe, is on vacation this week, one that had been planned for a long time.
And second, I guess I would like to know if you know how many people attended the Iowa State Fair on August 15th of 2013.
Approximately 86,000 people attended the fair that day.
And is there a point of ingress and egress to the fair at East 30th and Grand?
Yes, there is.
Do you have a name for that particular location?
Yes, that's gate 11, or we sometimes refer to it as the main gate.
And why do you call it the main gate?
Well, for one thing, it's on Grand Avenue, and Grand Avenue runs from downtown east and runs right into the fairgrounds. And you can, in the off-season, you can proceed right onto the fairgrounds. During the fair, we do block that gate, or block it off with a gate.
Do you happen to know how many people, either actually or as a percentage, entered and or exited through that location on that particular day?
On that particular day, I do have that information. It's about 34% of the 86,000 people come in and out of that gate, of 12 admission gates total.
Do the Iowa State Fairgrounds extend across East 30th Street to the west?
The Iowa State Fairgrounds property goes up to the east curb of East 30th Street.
Okay. And no property then across the street owned by the fairgrounds?
Fairgrounds does not own property on the west side of East 30th, no.
Thank you. How would you describe this gate in terms of the volume of pedestrian traffic entering and exiting on any given day?
On any given day, that gate is the largest gate percentage-wise of pedestrian traffic coming into the Iowa State Fairgrounds. Ebb and flows, obviously, Monday through Thursday is not as much as Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, but in volume, but it always has percentage of being the largest.
And I believe you've heard some testimony already today about how pedestrians actually access that gate, but could you just kind of point out for the court's benefit here your understanding of how people access the fair at that location?
Certainly. As you can tell, the area of the fairgrounds that is in our parking is fills up. We'll have, between the two parking lots, we'll have in excess of 5,000 cars, but from 86,000 people in a day, there are many more vehicles that need to be parked somewhere. A lot of people park in this area west of the fairgrounds in the neighborhoods. People have their yards for sale, and they park, and so they all have to funnel themselves into this point, and they cross the street. If they have a ticket, they go straight up that sidewalk to the gate. If they don't have a ticket, they go to the ticket office or ticket booth, buy a ticket, and then proceed through the gate, showing their ticket to the person that's doing the scanning of that. But everything is parked here, and then of course DART drops off on one side, and if those people riding the bus would come here off of the normal route, they would also funnel through that gate.
Are there sidewalks along the east side of East 30th running north and south?
No, there is not a sidewalk on the east side of East 30th.
Is there fencing running north and south along the east side of East 30th?
Yes, there is a fence.
Can you point out by reference to Exhibit 1 where that fence is, please?
Sure.
That fence begins here at the gate and runs along all the way up to the corner of East University Avenue.
Are there sidewalks along the west side of East 30th running north and south?
Yes, there are.
Does the Iowa State Fair charge people for admission to its property?
Yes, there is an admission fee.
Does the Iowa State Fair Authority charge people for admission to the fairgrounds property every day of the year?
No, we do not. No, the Iowa State Fair does not.
When is admission charged to the fairgrounds?
Admission is charged during the fair, the 11 days of the fair.
At the location that you were just pointing out where the ticket booth is, are fairgrounds visitors on the Iowa State Fair property at that point?
Well, yes, they are.
Are they inside the fenced portion of the fairgrounds at that point?
No, they're not.
How does the Iowa State Fair restrict persons from entering the paid admission portion of the fair at this location?
Well, the gates there are gates that go across the street itself, and then there are turnstiles for exiting, and there are admission turnstiles to get in as well. And there will be a ticket taker standing there with a scanner in their hand, scanning their ticket to make sure it's valid, and then allowing them to proceed forward.
And are those turnstiles on East Grand Avenue?
Yes.
Is there vehicular traffic at this gate too?
Vehicular traffic cannot go through onto the fairgrounds, but there is an abundance of vehicular traffic on East 30th going north and south. And then in addition to that, there is a taxi stand that is in the street portion of that entry area where people can grab a taxi to go home, or maybe they're being delivered to the fair. That is the standard location set up with the taxi companies for delivery and pickup. In addition to that, the Des Moines Police Department has a command center RV that is parked there in the afternoons, and they stage their traffic control and their security measures from that location as well. And so you'll see a couple of police car cruisers parked beside that RV as well.
Is this a point of entry to the fair for persons in vehicles wishing to park at the Iowa State Fair?
Not at Gate 11.
Now, you just mentioned the Des Moines Police Department's presence at this gate. Where are they located with reference to Exhibit 1? If you could point that out to the court, please.
As you can see, the gates are set back, and so that area in front of, to the west of those gates, there's a grassy area. The RV is parked in that grass area, and usually there's a couple of their police cars that accompany that RV beside it.
Are there officers positioned in the road at that location?
Excuse me?
Are there police officers in the road in East 30th Street at that location?
Yes, the Des Moines Police Department have a traffic officer on that intersection all day.
Do you know approximately what hours you're talking about when you say all day?
They start early in the day, and as the traffic picks up, they continue usually until after the grandstand show is released, which can be anywhere from 10 to midnight.
As the manager of the Iowa State Fair, do you have safety concerns with this location?
Always.
Why?
Because there's a lot of traffic. It is the largest pedestrian gate in terms of people going through it, of all of the 12 admission gates that we have, and there's vehicular traffic. There's history of accidents that have happened to pedestrians and to a police officer in the past. So we're very careful to make sure that we try to do everything possible for a continuous flow in and out of that gate because as many people come out of that gate as go in. So it's not just that many people going in, but they're all going back out at the end of the day as well.
Can you specifically relate any of those incidents that you were talking about with injuries?
Certainly, it's unfortunate a couple of years ago that the traffic officer was hit by a vehicle in that area and was critically injured. And then approximately 10 years ago, and my recollection is not exact as to the year, but it's certainly specific to a pedestrian that was leaving the fairgrounds, was hit, was struck by a vehicle and was killed.
If a person were simply standing at the location that Mr. Powell alleges he was standing in, would you, simply attempting to speak to fairgoers, either coming or going, would you still have concerns about that?
We want to make sure that that there's no impedance to traffic, pedestrian traffic going back and forth. Certainly, you have people that wait for their parties to catch up with them and whatnot, but normally they move along very quickly. But if there's someone that is standing there for a long period of time, blocking the flow of traffic on that particular sidewalk, we would certainly want to make sure that that person move along so that traffic flow can continue and safety to everyone involved, including that person.
What if an individual were to position himself on the east side of East 30th Street in one of the grassy areas between the fair's fence and the curb? Would you have a problem with that?
Generally not, because that is not a high traffic area of where you're referring to. Certainly if there were a lot of folks headed that way and they had to cross into the street to go around something or a person, we would be concerned about that, but generally not. Most people funnel into that gate from the neighborhood and not along that grassy area to the north or to the south of the main gate on the east side.
Okay, I'd like to focus now on the alleged incident on August 16th at East 33rd and University Avenues. Do you know how many people, first of all, attended the Iowa State Fair on August 16th of 2013?
Approximately 95,000.
And there is a point of ingress and egress to the fair at East 33rd and University, is there not?
Yes, there is.
Do you have a name for that particular location?
That is the gate right off of University Avenue at 33rd, referred to as Gate 2, or the 33rd Street Gate.
And do you know of those in attendance at the Iowa State Fair on August 16th of 2013, approximately what number or percentage of the fairgoers entered or exited through that gate?
Of the folks that went through Gate 2 or Gate 15?
Gate 15 would be the gate there at East 33rd and University, is that correct?
That's correct. So the vehicles and people come through Gate 2, but they're not charged admission there. At Gate 15 is where individuals are charged admission, and approximately 25 to 26% of all people that come to the Iowa State Fair that day came through that gate, so about a quarter.
How would you describe this gate in terms of the volume of pedestrian traffic?
There's a lot of both.
When you say both, are you referring to?
It is a gate that is congested because of approximately 25,000 pedestrians go through and exit, as well as you have over 5,000 cars that are coming into that parking area at the same, delivering those people and then parking. And then we also have deliveries that come through that gate and proceed to our maintenance facility to offload into our warehouse, whatever it may be, to sustain the operations of the fair.
How do fairgoers access this gate at this location? And feel free to demonstrate by reference to Exhibit 1.
As I stated earlier, once the fairgrounds parking area fills up with in excess of 5,000 cars, then people park on the north side of University, again in people's yards, and so they flow into Gate 2 and then walk up that street in amongst the cars, and hopefully, and then they'll buy a ticket, go through Gate 15, show their ticket, and they're in. But it is an area where we have a lot of safety concerns.
And can you point out where the turnstiles are? I assume there are turnstiles at Gate 15?
Yes, there are.
Could you point that out, please?
The gate and the turnstiles are right there.
So a considerable distance south of East University Avenue.
Yes.
Are there sidewalks along the south side of East University Avenue running east and west?
No, there's not.
Is there fencing running east and west along the south side of East University?
Yes, there is.
Can you point out again on Exhibit 1 where that fence is?
East University and East 33rd Street. The fence runs right along the south side of University Avenue, about where the tree line is, all the way to the corner of East 30th.
Do you have an estimate as to how far it is from the curbing on the south side of East University to where your fence is?
Estimate would be 12 to 15 feet.
Are there sidewalks along the north side of East University running east and west?
Yes.
Does the Iowa State Fair own property north of East University Avenue?
No, the Iowa State Fair does not.
What is your understanding of where the north boundary of the Iowa State Fair's property ends?
The north boundary of property goes up to the south side of East University Avenue curb.
Are there Des Moines police officers stationed at the East 33rd and University gate?
Yes.
Where?
It would be at the intersection of East University and East 33rd Street.
Right.
During what hours?
They start at 6 a.m. and proceed all the way through the evening hours, up close to midnight.
As manager of the Iowa State Fair, do you have safety concerns with this location? And by this location, I mean from the point of ingress onto the fairgrounds property at East 33rd and University down to gate 15.
Yes, because of the fact that you have pedestrians, and I am concerned because that you have pedestrians and vehicular traffic possibly mixing together at that point, or that whole area there.
Mr. Powell alleges in his complaint that he, quote, went to the north gate outside of the Iowa State Fair on a public sidewalk in front of the public bathrooms on August 16th of 2013. Would you agree that this is a public sidewalk?
No, that's part of the Iowa State Fairgrounds.
Would you have concerns with the particular location outside of those bathrooms where Mr. Powell situated himself?
Yeah, as stated earlier, 25,000 people are coming and funneling right to that point and forward to the gate. And so if people gather, you can make people behind them go around, and as they go around, if they're distracted, don't see a car or truck or something like that, that's what we're concerned about, is their safety and the normal flow of traffic.
What if an individual were to situate himself on the south side of East University in one of the grassy areas between the fence and the curb? Would you have a problem with individuals being there?
Generally, the traffic pattern of pedestrians is not nearly as heavy there, and I wouldn't have a concern of someone standing in that area, no.
How many acres does the Iowa State Fair own?
Approximately 435.
Can you break that down in terms of campground areas versus non-campground areas?
Campgrounds encompass about 160 acres of that, so the balance would be 270, 75.
Is the Iowa State Fair open to people expressing their views on the Iowa State Fairgrounds?
Repeat the question.
Is the Iowa State Fair open to people expressing their views on the fairgrounds?
Certainly.
Can you give me any examples?
You know, the Iowa State Fair is a place where people gather, and we have, it's like a stage almost. There are lots of folks that purchase space in our Varied Industry building or underneath the grandstand, outdoor space, to sell their wares, tell their views, allow, the Des Moines Register has a booth that allows candidates running for office to do what they call as a stump speech, if they so choose, and people can gather in that area to listen or not. So we're certainly open to all of those types of commerce or messages that are political or other types of nature.
Besides politicians, any other groups that you have had expressing viewpoints at the fair that you can specifically point to?
We have People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. A couple years ago, purchased a booth underneath the grandstand to share their views about animal agriculture.
Then what's the problem with someone expressing their views at the locations where Mr. Powell was on the evenings of August 15th and August 16th?
The expression of views is not necessarily a problem. It is the fact that we are concerned about certain areas and the safety of our fairgoers, as well as the safety of those people wanting to present those views, and keeping the flow of traffic in those areas uncongested.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Kellum, would you like to cross-examine?
Just briefly, Your Honor. Hello, Mr. Slater.
How are you?
Doing well. Let me just ask you a quick question, make sure I understand. The parking lot that you mentioned that 5,000 people park, that is just north of the public restrooms, is that correct?
It's in the same area as the public restrooms are in the parking lot. Yes.
Okay. But the turnoff into the parking lot, is that north of the restrooms?
Yes, off of University Avenue. Yes.
And the gate, I believe you mentioned it was gate 15, that is south of the public restrooms, is that correct?
That is correct.
Those public restrooms, are they accessible, or is there any restriction to those public restrooms?
If you come through into the parking area, there is no restriction that I'm aware of. We don't place a guard there or charge admission to our restroom. We do charge admission to the parking area for your car, but if you're on foot, you can proceed to that point without paying a toll to get into the fair.
Okay.
That happens at gate 15.
And that's during the fair, and I guess outside the fair as well, is that right?
Excuse me.
There's access to those public restrooms outside the fair as well. I'm sorry, when I mean outside the time frame of the fair.
Yes, however, those restrooms are not always open year-round. If there's nothing happening in that portion of the fairgrounds, they do have roll-down doors, and they're not accessible. But if we would be having an off-season event that would be in that area, we would open those.
And so it would be accessible, I guess, in the sense that the area in front of the restrooms are accessible, is that correct? All year round?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Slater.
Any redirect? All right, you may step down. Mr. Slater, thank you.
No further evidence, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Kellum, do you have any evidence you want to offer? You originally indicated you want to rest on your affidavits. That's still the case?
That could still very well be the case. Could the court give us a moment for me to consult?
Certainly.
About that?
Would you like a brief recess?
If we could, Your Honor. Just
All right. We'll be in recess until 3:30.
Thank you.
All right.